This is the control box for the system here. This is going to be the metering pump for the system. So this is going to be your injection. This is the set flow rate at the moment. And then the jug above it is the reservoir for the actual pump. On the side of the control box, you have the vacuum pump. So this is going to be the vacuum pump here. This is going to be the high pressure, the low pressure, and then the DP pressure is below that one as well. This is going to be the air coming into the system, and you have a regulator down here. We set this between about 60 and 90 PSI, and that's just to operate the automated valves as well. This is going to be the CC cell that we fill up the system with. The idea is we're going to pressurize this line, which is about 0.73 cc's, and this is going to be our pulse pressure, and this is going to measure the actual pulse. So this is going to pulse the inlet of the rock and then go through the rock, and then it'll eventually come back into this chamber. So this is 0.73 cc's, and this is going into a 500 cc chamber, which is essentially just a lot larger of a chamber. So this is our actual DP transducer, which is going to measure the differential pressure across the core itself. This is our accumulator down here. This is about 500 cc's as well. This is our receiving one. This is 500 cc's. This is V1, V2. This is going to be the pulse pressure. So pulse pressure will be this transducer on this side, and then this transducer right here will be going to be the upstream pressure right here. So on the front panel here, you have the vacuum gauge, vacuum here, vacuum relief. This will be open. So up is open. This will be open every time that you are not running the vacuum. So if you're running the vacuum, you'll close it like this, and then the rest of the time you'll have it open. Vent downstream reservoir, and then this is going to be valve M2, and this is valve M1. So this is what the back of the instrument looks like right here. So this is going to be our vacuum pump. Obviously, this is our reservoir chamber in case we have any fluids. We have this connected to the very top of this T right here. So we're going to be pulling the vacuum, pulling all the air and gas out the top. It's kind of hard to see, but so it's going to be pulling hopefully through here and getting all the gas out. This again is going to be our accumulator, 500 cc accumulator. So this is going to be the actual fluid that we compress onto the actual to build the pulse in here. This is again the CC cell reservoir. This is going to be for the vent vacuum. It'll be here in case we want to purge through here. We can purge through the top there. This is the back side of the control box. So you have your inlet air pressure, your valves A and B for valve 1, valve 2, and your bypass valves. This communication cable will go to your metering pump. So that'll be to that pump right there. So the communication will go to this top one here. This will be your RS-232. This is where you set your actual air pressure to the system with this regulator. Okay, so the first step is once you actually load your core in and you've closed the top and the bottom, you've screwed these in all the way. Make sure there's no gaps in between the rock. You're going to pump. You're going to put this to pressurize, and then you're going to close this valve. And then you should see it pump up through here, and then it should come out of this valve here if this is open. So that's closed, and then this is open. So we already had it pretty much full, but that should purge all the air out. Once it's actually full, it'll come out, and you'll close that valve. And we should see some pressure here. And we'll put about 4,000 on there right now. Once you actually get to the pressure that you want, you're going to close it here. Once this is closed, we're going to take this valve and release the pressure between here and here. We'll leave that open. So this is what the main software looks like when you open it up here. In the top left, you'll have a main button right there. If you drop that down, you'll actually go online. There's an online and an offline, but to actually run it, it'll be online. You can see the communication right now. It is online in the top left there. So the other thing in the top blue box there on the left, the main thing you're going to use up there is the custom log file tab right there. And that's where everything's going to log to when you start logging your actual test. So you can edit that and open that folder there. The bottom left down there is the injection pump tab or box, and that's the set flow rate. So you'll set that whatever you want. You can edit it right now or you can edit it whenever. It won't actually start until you actually hit start on the test operation there, but that's where you set that flow rate. And then you have your pulse pressure on the left there, and then upstream pressure on the right, and then you have your DP pressure, and then that's valve 1, valve 2, and valve 3. And then you have your vacuum pump on the bottom right down there as well. So if you look to the right, you have test operation, and then you have your user parameters there. This is going to be everything for the actual automated tests. Test pore pressure. So this is going to be the main pressure. Like the pore pressure right now is 880. And then the target pulse pressure. So this would be the pressure that you're actually going to pulse at. So the difference of those two numbers is the actual pulse pressure itself. And then you have core length, core diameter. The V1, this is a fixed number, so it's 0.73 like I showed you earlier. Salinity, that's of the, your fluid. Porosity, viscosity, confining, and then liquid compressibility of the fluid, and then your VP, V1, and then alpha, and then the end the test DP pressure is at 0.2 psi. So you'll enter all these things. A lot of it won't necessarily change. It just depends on the sample you're running and the fluids that you're running. But you'll hit save when you're done with it. So before we start this next test, we're going to change the pore pressure obviously to a higher number than what it is right now, because you can't go down in pressure. The pump can't go down in pressure. So we're going to set it to about 1,000, and then you're going to create your target pulse pressure quite a bit higher. So we'll do 1,900. So there's like a 900 psi difference. And then you're going to lose a lot of pressure after you dump it, or the pulse part of that. So 900, and it depends on the sample, but 900 might only give us like 30 psi drop. So we just hit start. The pump will automatically start running at whatever flow rate is already set there. And like I said, that's set at 0.5 cc's a minute right now. And then it's going to have all the valves open, and it'll just run until it reaches that 1,000 psi, which could take a little bit of time depending how much. Obviously, you don't want any gases in there. For the sake of this test, I've speeded this up quite a bit. So when it's actually reached its pore pressure that you've set, it's going to close V1 and do a 1 minute 5 psi leak check. And then I've also sped this up just for the sake of this video. And then after the 1 minute of leak test, it's going to build to the pulse pressure. It's going to close V2 there, as you can see. And then this is going to go to your 1,900 psi. So this is going to be the pressure that you pulse through the actual sample itself. And then once it gets to pressure, it should close V1. So after it actually builds to the 1,900 psi, it's going to close V1. It's going to zero out the DP here in a second. So it's closed V3, zeroed out the DP, and then it's going to open V2, and it's going to dump that. So it dumped the pressure, and it created about 29 psi differential pressure. So this is going to run until it meets the end pressure DP criteria, which is 0.2 psi. Depending on how tight your sample is, it could take longer than this. Right now, the log interval is every 5 seconds as well, and you can change that in that log interval box at the top there.
And I'll show you what the data looks like after this. So again, the test is almost done. You're at 0.6, 0.52 psi, 0.4, and our test criteria is 0.2. So when it reaches that 0.2, it'll open that V3 valve, that bypass valve, and that says that the test is done. So this is the actual Excel sheet that it logged to. This is going to be all your data right here. All the criteria from the sample and everything on the test is up top. And then it's going to log, it shows you your time and your pressures and your actual DP in here. And you'll actually take this data here and you're going to copy it and put it into the next Excel sheet that I'm about to show you. So this Excel sheet here, this is going to be the one where it actually analyzes the data for you. It looks overwhelming, but it's not really. You're pretty much just going to copy and paste your data from the other Excel sheet into this one. So in this box right here, this is going to be all the values from your user parameters from the software. So you'll just input those in there. So this whole part here, this is what's going to be imported from this Excel sheet here. So you'll copy all of this data, and then you're actually going to paste it into this field over here. Once the data has actually been put into there, if you can look down there in the red there, it says MD. That's going to be the actual value in millidarcy. And that's pretty much everything.